You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason.
Your co-host, Danny.
Fans, we got a full show for you today. NFL talk, week number 13. Little college football, and yes, a trading card scenario. But first, right into it, Danny. NFL, Turkey Day, Thanksgiving, interesting games. I would say that Bears-Lions game, especially towards the tail end there, bad clock management by the Bears, which ultimately costed the Bears' now former head coach his job. Just totally bad clock management, Danny. 23-20, the Lions prevail. Caleb Williams, 256 yards, 3 touchdowns, comes on in the second half. I'm happy that the Bears made this move, man. It's got to come to a point where these just mishaps, these moments towards the end of the game that cost the team a victory, something's got to be done. And the locker room was lost. The teammates are looking at each other like, do you believe what this happened? And something needed to be done. And the Bears organization finally did something here. Nonetheless, it's not going to save them for the season. Game of note here was that of the Packers and Dolphins. Packers win 30-17. Won't go too much into it. Knew this was going to happen. Don't know when the last time the Miami Dolphins won in a cold weather game.
Mm-hmm.
So this was cool to have on Thanksgiving night. What say you, Danny, about the Thanksgiving games?
Yeah, Matt Eberflus, that coaching error was the tipping point. But, Jason, the Bears had an opportunity to get Jim Harbaugh in the offseason. Mm-hmm. Bringing in Caleb Williams and starting fresh. And I put this on the front office because this was long overdue. Just the way things were operating, just in the organization, and just bringing in a new quarterback, just establish him with a system so you didn't go through the same things like you did with Justin Fields. And we've talked about this in the past. Mm-hmm. And the other thing of note here is the Lions, man, another defensive injury on the defense side of the ball. They had another injury. So they're kind of getting depleted here on the defensive side of the ball. So I was surprised Montgomery played. It didn't sound like he was going to play before the game, but he played, and he played well. They're gearing up for that Thursday night showdown with your boys on Amazon Prime this week. So something to note from Detroit side because of the defense that may come back to haunt them in the playoffs as you're gearing up. So they may have to pick up somebody off the street to help. You know, Packers, Dolphins just started off way too slow, man, and they couldn't get it going. And Packers took full advantage of that. And we knew what it was. Going into that cold, Miami didn't want to be there.
They didn't want to be there, man. They didn't want to be there.
So they showed, too. They kind of put a little something in the fourth quarter, make it at least interesting, but Green Bay took care of business. And like I said, they get ready for that showdown for Detroit on Thursday.
And just as you talk about the Lions, Danny, I think in the NFC conference, you have to talk about the Eagles. The Eagles now who won, I want to say, 8 straight here. And they go into Baltimore and just outplay them. Eagles prevailed 24-19. Saquon Barkley continues just to impress, man. 23 carries, 107 yards, a touchdown on like a 25-yard scamper there. And Lamar Jackson goes for 23, 36, 237 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just didn't have the same impact, if you will. Derrick Henry, 19 carries, 82 yards. again, this didn't have the same impact. Then something's got to be said here with regards to Justin Tucker and just him tricking two field goals and an extra point. You know, that would have won a game, depending upon how the game would flowed after or made field goal, etc. But nonetheless, man, Justin Tucker continues to struggle. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame, if you will, kicker who is not having a Hall of Fame season. And this is going to be interesting to see how Baltimore gathers around him just to keep his psyche because they're going to need him in the playoffs. And I don't know, man, Danny. I just think that in the NFC conference, you have Philadelphia, you have Detroit, who, with the injuries Detroit's having, has kind of fallen off a little bit, in my opinion. You got to watch out for the Packers, you got to watch out for the Vikings. So things are kind of opening up a little bit more. There's a little wiggle room in these cracks. And I think Philly still has something to say about it. But to that point, Danny, I have to say that Saquon Barkley continues to impress, continues to have this MVP campaign in his stride towards 2,000 yards. Something to keep watch of. He has definitely changed the makeup of the Philadelphia Eagles. For this to be a critical game, Baltimore just didn't show up, man. What say you, Danny, about this game?
It's Justin Tucker, man. That was huge because the two field goals he missed, both of them would have put them up 15-14 at the time. It was 14-12. He has a couple weeks to kind of figure this out. So congratulations to the Eagles to get that win. Barkley put up another big game. Jalen Hurts still continues to do his thing as well.
The other game of note here on my end, Danny, is that of Buffalo Bills and 49ers. 49ers goes into Bills home, cold, snowy, snow angels being made. And the Buffalo Bills just whip up on 49ers. This is be real, 35-10. Unfortunately, McCaffrey goes out. It's an indication that his PCL, there's a PCL injury. He may be out for the rest of the season. This might be a done deal for the 49ers, Danny. They're 5-7. I don't see them necessarily making it here, playoffs, but Josh Allen, 13 for 17, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's a key point there. He runs for 18 yards and a touchdown. Some are saying that, Josh Allen's is leading the field for the MVP. We'll see. But I think this is a wrap. I think we stick a fork in the 49ers. I think they're done. What say you, Danny, about the rest of the NFL weekend?
Quickly on the 49ers game, also was announced that Jordan Mason, the backup to Christian McCaffrey, was put on IR. So that's just recent news. So it's just unfortunate, just from the standpoint of, you come off a Super Bowl and then this happens. But that's NFL, right? Not for long, as they say. So great game by the Bills. Get to my Falcons here real quick. Take that L 17-13, losing to the Chargers. Lab McConkey made his debut in Georgia, former Georgia wide receiver from Georgia, and he went off, had over 100 yards, 9 receptions. Kirk Cousins, good old Kirky, 4 interceptions, couple in the red zone. It was just a nightmare, man, to watch them. Their defense played lights out. They only technically gave up 9 points because Kirk Cousins threw a pick 6 in this game as well. They shut down Justin Herbert and the Chargers for the most part, giving up only 3 field goals. Younghoe Koo missed a field goal earlier in the game, but it was just bad, man. And so now, here come those whispers. Michael Penix Jr., do you play him? Do you not? So Atlanta technically still has the division lead. We're 6-6. And the Buccaneers are also 6-6. They got lucky yesterday in Carolina in overtime and pulled that one out after a fumble by Chuba Hubbard. But back to the Falcons, you got to stick with Kirk Cousins. You paid him all this money, at least one more game. And guess where he's going next week? Minnesota. We're headed to Minnesota next week. So I think this is the game right here. He has to, you got to play him because he's going home, or going back to where he came from. So if he's not motivated to play well next week and he does what he did yesterday, then the conversation needs to be had because it's just a shame, man, because he's making a ton of money. And
Mhm.
we know this is Kirk Cousins, though. That's the problem. It's, he has these ups and downs. And now we're in a 3-game losing streak and
Yeah.
we're in trouble we may not even make the playoffs. And we have a hard schedule. Tampa Bay does not, finishing the rest of the season. So something else to consider, but just a terrible game, man, from a Falcons perspective. So it was just a rough day, Jay, from being, watching that game, but big game next week in Minnesota.
And I was going to ask you about the Falcons. What did they do with Kirk Cousins? So it sounds like you're saying let him play this Minnesota game.
You have to. You can't bench him going back to Minnesota. You can't put Penix in that spot, I guess is what I'm getting at, because
Yeah.
that's a huge game. What the Vikings are in, the fifth spot right now because of Detroit's leading the division. So it's a big game for Minnesota too. So this is what you paid Kirk Cousins for. And we'll see what happens. Does he bounce back or does he not? But he hasn't had a touchdown in 4 weeks. It's just horrible. Let me not forget, Bijan had over 100 yards yesterday and a touchdown rushing, over 30 yards receiving. Bijan had a great game. One other thing I'll call out is some of the play calling where they took Bijan out the game and put in Algier on these third ones, fourth and ones, and got stuffed. It was just a bad game overall. But like I said, you lose next week, you're in trouble because
Well,
Tampa
they,
Bay has a weak schedule coming up. I just need to see something from Kirk Cousins because the defense couldn't have played any better yesterday.
and now Danny on to college football. Just want to highlight a couple games, man. I want to highlight that Georgia Tech Georgia game that went into 8 overtimes. Georgia Tech, man. Let me just say this about their quarterback King. He put everything he could out on the field.
Hmm.
Same thing with the rest of the team, man. King, 24 carries, 110 yards, 3 touchdowns, threw for 26 for 36, 303 yards, 2 touchdowns. And let me just say this, Danny. I think it's time for a change in the overtime rules. No way should a game go in 8 overtimes, man. I think it's to a point now where I would rather just see them play out a fifth quarter,
Hmm.
personally, but have it in where both teams at least gets the ball
Yep.
and forget all this about one overtime. It's for 2 point conversions. The next overtime, you got to score a touchdown. I mean, let's just let them play it out.
Yeah.
I'll play it out. I'd rather look at that. But I mean, it did cause a stir. It did cause me to tune in, definitely held my attention.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, because they really put it out on the field. And you gotta give Kirby Smart and Georgia Bulldogs some credit here. They were down in this game like 17, and they came back, descended to overtime, and then prevailed in the 8 overtimes, man. But man, you gotta feel something for Georgia Tech. The coaches were spent, the long embrace after the game, them on the sidelines just figuring out if they're gonna win or lose, what plays to do next, to draw up next, and pretty certain their playbook was depleted after that game. But what this forces me, man, to do is to really take a look at Georgia Tech in their bowl game to see what they do moving forward, man, because I think they have something. They have some grit and grind to them. I'm also intrigued to see what's going to happen in the SEC championship game with Georgia, with Georgia against Texas. For them to play 8 overtimes, to be emotionally spent after that game, how much energy will they have in this
Mhm.
championship game, Danny?
Yep.
And I'm just going to say right now, I think Texas is going to win. Texas has been strong, pretty much throughout the whole season. Georgia's been the one that's been kind of up and down, in my opinion.
Yep.
I think Texas is going to win for the first time that they've been even in the conference. So we'll see what happens, man. But I see a Texas win here. What say you about the college football weekend?
Jay, seeing Colorado win 52-0, they need a lot to happen to even be considered for the playoffs. But just to see how big of a game that was last week that they lost, seeing all the teams like Miami lost this week, they were upset by Syracuse. But just seeing them, what they did, and for them to blow out Oklahoma State the way they did, it's tough, man. And then I look at that Michigan Ohio State game and what went
Mm-hmm.
down there. Is Ryan Day on the hot seat for losing
He's got to
again
be
to
on a hot
Michigan?
seat, man. He's got to be.
And then the whole thing that happened after the game, if you watch college football or pay attention, you know what happened there. But that's just a bad loss for Ohio State to lose like that to Michigan. But we'll see with Ryan Day, man, because I know even if he wins a national championship, what happens? I don't see it, but what happens to him? Do they make a move after him losing again? There are some good games this week, but like you said, man, that overtime game took the cake.
Yeah, definitely. And now we have an interesting trading card scenario, Danny. Who we got?
So, Jason, or tonight's trading card scenario is Christian McCaffrey's 2017 Panini Prism rookie card for Saquon Barkley's 2018 Panini Prism rookie card. A couple quick bios. Christian McCaffrey was the eighth overall pick in the 2017 NFL Draft out of Stanford by the Carolina Panthers. He's rushed for over 6,000 yards and has over 50 touchdowns in his career. Three-time Pro Bowler and two-time All-Pro. Saquon Barkley was the second overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft out of Penn State by the New York Giants. Barkley has rushed for over 6,600 yards and has over 45 touchdowns. Two-time Pro Bowler, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jason, who do you want in your portfolio?
This was a tough one, Danny. At first, I thought I had a shoe in vote here, but looking at it a little bit more, I've just been torn. No pun intended. Because both of these players got injured for a season. McCaffrey is experiencing his injury this season. And has injuries throughout the course of his NFL career. Saquon injured himself his second year, I want to say. This story can be said a lot with Saquon with regards to him moving to a divisional rival.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the Giants didn't want him anymore, the Giants had to choose between Daniel Jones and Saquon, and look at them now. They don't have either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But upon leaving said New York Football Giants, Saquon has done an incredible job. He's in the MVP race. And in my opinion, even his rookie year, I mean, you can say a lot, but he was, gunning for, I mean, his rookie of the year, AP rookie of the year. I mean, he had an excellent season, his rookie season. Saquon behind a terrible line and with a terrible team with the New York Giants. I'm just wondering what he could have been had he had an offensive line on a halfway decent team. Saquon did an incredible move this year that is going to be shown throughout time. Christian McCaffrey, I would say scrimmage yards, um, and translates into point, especially for those who play fantasy football. This was a tough one for me, Danny, but I'm going to have to go with Saquon Barkley. I would like to have Saquon Barkley in my portfolio because I can speak to the Giants and Phillies rival here. I can say something there. Christian McCaffrey, although he did go to the Super Bowl and had a good game in the Super Bowl, still doesn't have a ring. But I think with Saquon, being that he is in the big media market, he's going to get a lot more shine. There's no telling where the Eagles are going to go this year. They're looking good. They're looking really good. And Saquon is in the MVP race.
Yep.
So this could very well be a player of the year, offensive player of the year type situation for him, which would match Christian McCaffrey. And with that, I'm just going to go with Saquon. Who you got?
Jason, these stories are actually very similar with Christian McCaffrey going from the Panthers to the 49ers. Great rushing or a system for running backs. And same can go for Saquon going from the Giants to the Eagles, where he had a system that suited him. Because if Saquon goes to, say, or CMC goes to, say, whatever team that doesn't have that system in place and the offensive line and all that, who's to say how they would have responded? Because CMC had the same type of year when he went to, his first year with the 49ers. And Saquon's taking it full advantage of it, man, because, you're trapped in despair and you get an opportunity like this, man, you want to take full advantage. That being said, I think right now, especially on the heels of the news with CMC being injured, what does this say for the rest of his career? Is he done? Because, he battled the Achilles injuries all season. Now he has a PCL injury. Is this like the beginning and the end of Christian McCaffrey? Has he still got something left? But I would say at this point, I'm taking Saquon's card as well because I'm just looking at the trajectory, right? And Saquon, say they do really well. They do well in the playoffs. They win the Super Bowl. They don't. I can see him repeating this performance, barring any injury, and carrying this momentum. But I think it's very close because I think their careers are kind of mirrored. Right. They've had issues with injuries. They've had played on bad teams. Now they're in good systems. And it's just kind of what's the latest and greatest for me. And I'm looking at the value of the card and CMC getting injured and possibly being in. I'm looking at Saquon's card has more value. So I'm going to go with you, man.
Let me add to this, though, Danny. Mm-hmm. I think something has got to be said about the uprising or the revitalization or whatever term you want to put for running backs.
Yep.
One thing we got to give McCaffrey credit for is him getting his money. He signed like a 2-year extension earlier this year. 2-year, $38 million extensions. What Saquon is doing, look, he went to the Eagles and he has totally transformed that team off of his play.
Yep.
And his leadership. And so something's got to be said about the value of the running back. And so that's another reason why I was really torn between the two. Yes, their careers mirror each other, but a story can be told about the running back position with these two running backs. So we'll see what happens, man, but we definitely agreed this time.
Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at @back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember that there's enough hate in the world, so go ahead and spread a little love.